Well, I gotta give LP immense credit on this record. And he did it here where it didn't happen on Fantastic Damage, which was he transported you to a place.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Fantastic Damage had a sound. This has a place. This has like a world that you got taken to. You know what I'm saying? So like, and he did a great job with the dun 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 dun, because that was the portal into where the fuck you going. You know what I'm saying? And just the way that it plays out. Then when they come in, you gotta understand with my street rap sensibilities, how I came up. My shell, mechanical, found ghost. I'm like, what? What the fuck is he talking about? Which, by the way, on 87% of this record, the fuck is he talking about? I don't know what he's talking, what Vordul's talking about almost all the time. I'm lost. I'm still lost as a 40-year-old. I'm confused. I don't know what he's talking about. But what's ill about this shit is that their voices play like another instrument on the record. And a part of it is the way that their voices, and maybe you guys, maybe Sean, you'll know some more about this too. But part of it is the way that their voices are mixed on the album. Because there's a lot of even the vocals sound industrial. You know what I'm saying?
There's some editing and effects, and we'll get into some of these later, where there's some pretty interesting ways that El was doing the vocals, putting effects on the vocals. It's not even just mixing, it's really more just like creative decisions.
Okay.
It's as I was listening to it, recently, just to give a little primer before we did this. It doesn't happen as much as you would think would happen in a genre that is so primarily based around the voice.
That's why it stands out so crazy.
Yeah, it stands out so crazy. And like, I think we've spoken about before, or maybe or just off mic we have, but Kendrick Lamar gets so much praise for all the things that he does, and he's done some amazing things in his career. One of the big things for me, especially when you listen to like his earlier records, or early major label, was the vocal production. What Mixed by Ali was doing with changing the pitch, changing the panning, changing all these ways of how the voice is perceived. You wish you would hear more of this stuff because it's so powerful, because the voice is always in the forefront of hip hop records. And so making creative choices like that is super, super smart. You know, it just takes it to another level.
It's so bananas how like, and again, they didn't change their, like whatever he did creatively, they changed the voices. They didn't change their voices. They just rap. But there's just like this air and metal to
vast air.
There's a vast air, right? And there's this metal, like there's
villain.
The way that he's using delay, on their vocals. So like the long-winded point that I was trying to make is I don't even need to know what he's talking about to be sucked into the world, So just out of the gate, this is an ultimate key. This is one of the great intros and intro tracks in rap music, in my opinion. You were a stillborn baby. Mother didn't want you, but you were
stillborn.
Out the gate. Oh, crazy key.
So, for me, again, I look at music the way I look at film. And anybody to tell you I'm a film fucking nerd. Like, I've written so much about film, the history of film, independent film, how independent film eras tie up with the golden eras of hip hop. I'm that guy. So for me, when I knew where LP was coming from when he did this. I actually had a conversation with him outside of a show that he did with Killer Mike before they officially got down, because DJ Trackstar and me were boys through like TSS and everything. But I knew that this was influenced by three things: the film THX 1138, Blade Runner, and also him loving the Holy Mountain enough to pull references from this weird fucking film and throw it in, and very few people knew that was from the Holy Mountain.
Right.
And they made people seek out the Holy Mountain. The third component is, so there's this movie that some people remember as kids like was a fever dream, which later became an iconic film through Mad Lib, Fantastic Planet.
Mm.
So there are these sounds that happen throughout Fantastic Planet, and the aliens and the humans respond to them, and they know that it's a cue for something. And he uses that, and that same thing from all these dystopian films where they use these cues for these things you're supposed to do in society. And he uses it to transform you from where you are, sitting in your chair, being on the train, wherever you are. This album is going to take you here. Because if you don't go through this portal, you're not going to be able to fuck with this album. Because where you are, you can't really grasp it. Because they are not speaking English.
That's what it. That's you, man. That's spot on, bro.
So
spot on.
So Iron Galaxy, quite literally, Iron Galaxy. Wherever the fuck you are, you about to come here with us. And this is the world you're going to be in. You're immersed in it now, and you're going to rock with us until this album ends. So to me, this is one of the all-time great album openers and intros. Yeah. It's a key.
Guys, I gotta cut it. No, I'm just kidding.
Man.
No, it's a great signifier for what is about to follow. It's unorthodox production that is going to take some interesting turns, especially at this point early on in the 21st century, where, again, so many listeners have been conditioned to expecting certain things, certain parameters for their rap music that they're consuming at the time. You got Vordul kicking it off, who has just such a crazy unorthodox style. And again, there's no form that is easily digestible to his raps. It just seems like he's going off. And then you got Vast, who is actually like such a great pairing. And it's worth noting too that while both of these guys were in Adam's Family together, they were not necessarily in a group until they did Cannibal Ox.
Yeah.
And so Vast has such an interesting contrast to Vordul, where Vordul is like a train that has gone off the tracks, and it's like, we cut the brakes. We don't understand why the train is still going, and we don't know where it's going to turn next because it's off track. Vast is a bit more simplified, and it is probably more digestible in compared to his rhyming partner. But even in that simplicity, and again, this is kind of a moment where I think he mastered this style on this album. And then you see in the later Vast projects and Vast verses, he was still doing the same thing where he was taking simplistic approaches, but it somehow wasn't hitting in the same way. He was able to take really profound concepts and say them in clever, simple ways on this record that it's incredible. And it's kind of maybe a curse to him because it was very difficult to follow up. And I know that a lot of people have said, and I've read that Vast had some of these rhymes since he was like a young teenager. You know, he'd been working on a lot of these concepts and workshopping it. And it's an old adage, you know, you have your whole life to do your first record, then you have 6 months to do your second record.
Yeah.
But the contrast here, like, you want to talk about hip hop quotables? There's so many hip hop quotables on this record just for Vast alone.
Just for that. But
it's
because the way he raps lends itself to a quotable.
Yeah.
Because the lines are so drawn out and like 4 words for 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like just the way that it plays, that everything he says can be, there's some rappers that you look at in history where like the style is such a unique thing that like, I think about Vast, I think about Freeway. Like you never heard nobody rap like Freeway before Freeway, and you haven't heard anybody rap like Freeway since Freeway except Freeway. Like, even when guys have the same type of slang and things, they're not, from a technical aspect, what he does in a rap, nobody does it. What Vast was doing here, nobody did this before Vast, and nobody's done it since, even him.
So think about how weird that is, because there are people. So Aesop Rock kind of was inspired by a West Coast style and a New York sensibility, combined them together in Aesop Rock, and then that motherfucker had clones all over the place afterwards.
Right.
And then you look at his contemporaries, and people are like, we're not trying to do that shit.
Yeah.
It was like, but you tried to copy this? So it's crazy how, like, you listen to Vast Aire and you're like, that's you. And then Vordul Mega was, when you think about how young Vordul was at the time of the recording of this album, you know, and you're just like, what? And you listen to what he's saying, you're like, what? You know, that is some special ed type shit. You know, you were 14 and 15 showing up to Howie T's house with these rhymes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
crazy.
that's the kind of feeling I get.
It's just I'm just looking at some of these lines. He said, "Boy meets world. Of course, his pops is gone. What you figure? That chalky outline on the ground is a father figure." That's so clever.
Yeah.
It's so clever, but on paper it might not read as dope. But the way he delivers it and the tone of his voice is just crazy.
And so, okay. Also, the fact that Vast, the contrast puts so much more stress on the Vast raps because you go, so Vordul has the first 2 verses.
Right.
Yes.
So you go 2 verses of not understanding anything, and then the 3rd verse you understand everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, you're like your brain's gonna explode. This is like if Aesop Rock did an album with Method Man. You know what I'm saying?
So to me, this was like an inverted version of what happened when we used to listen to Nice and Smooth. Because Greg Nice would just go off on what we thought was a freestyling tangent, and then Smooth B would come with this really calm, technical rhyme and talk about all these esoterical things and facts and numbers. And he would talk about religion, and he would talk about real life and all this other stuff. And then the song ends. And you're like, wait, what? What? How can you have styles so different from each other and they blend? And that's what I feel like with Cannibal Ox. And it's just weird because they were just like, all right, you guys are a group. Nice and Smooth were just like, hey, we're a group. You know? There's none of that with Cannibal Ox. It's like when they make this album, it's lightning in a bottle, and we don't know if we're ever going to get it again. And we didn't.